15 Temmuz'un önemini algılamanın kıymeti var. Başka tehlikelere, tehditlere karşı donanımlı olmayı gerçekten bir ajanda haline getirebilmek.
Bu metnin tüm Türkiye Cumhuriyeti kanallarında yayınlanması Türk Silahlı Kuvvetleri'nin bir emridir.
The media narrative has really played an important role for the AKP government and for President Erdogan to disseminate a particular version of the events.
Ve bu malum yapıya ait paralel yapılanmanın kullandığı bir harekettir.
Bu çok önemli bir noktadır Türkiye gazetecilik tarihinde. O gece hakikaten darbenin değil, milli iradenin yanında saf tuttu Türkiye medyası ve gazeteciler.
Herkes sokaklara çıksın, hükümetine, devletine ve ay yıldızlı bayrağına sahip çıksın.
From the soldiers and civilians killed and injured to the bullet-scarred walls of government buildings, from accusations, confessions, prosecutions and recriminations, a new national narrative has emerged in which Turkey is beset by an enemy within, the Fethullah terror organization, to be known henceforth by the acronym FETÖ.
Devleti savunmak isteyen
Journalists who want to defend the state also want to keep the 15th of July high on the agenda. If you consider the character, the texture, the intricate structure, and the sophistication of the organization that we fought against on the 15th of July, you will better understand why that day will not be forgotten.
daha net görüyorsunuz.
Böyle bir 15 Temmuz propagandasıyla
The government is trying to keep itself in power off the back of the propaganda of 15th of July. Even before the coup attempt came to an end, the pro-government media were very quick to label the coup plotters as members of FETÖ. This discourse has continued unabated since that date.
sürekli olarak devam etti.
In truth, the Gulen movement and the AK Party coexisted and cooperated for years before relations soured. Gulenists took top jobs in the judiciary, in education, in the police and army, and had significant holdings in the media. But that history has no place in the current government discourse, which has Gulen's followers infiltrating Turkey's institutions to form a parallel state. When that organisation attempted to seize power by force, it was only President Erdogan's timely and effective mobilisation of the popular will that stopped them. However, while their coup attempt was thwarted, their supporters are still being outed all the time, not only in the courts, but in trials by media.
So when a new decree law is announced and people raise their concerns about the implications of that decree law, usually the first response from a pro-government pundit is, "Are you a member of the FETÖ?"
Bu Ahmet Hakan'ın Fethullahçı polislerin emrinde olduğunu gösterir.
This becomes a vehicle for silencing oppositional voices and for discouraging people from asking questions, not only about FETÖ, but in general about any government policy.
FETÖ,
The issue of FETÖ in Turkey is not an easy thing to grasp. It is a movement which was so well hidden that many journalists supported them. Unfortunately, some are saying that there have been unjust investigations and prosecutions against FETÖ, such as cases against journalists. But we need to distinguish between true journalists and those who merely call themselves journalists.
According to President Erdogan and many in the Turkish media, the influence of FETÖ even extends to a court in New York, where, late last year, Reza Zarrab, a Turkish-Iranian gold trader, admitted to running a sanctions-busting racket trading Iranian oil for gold, paying millions of dollars in bribes to senior Turkish ministers along the way. Zarrab's testimony implicated Erdogan and his son, Bilal, but viewed from Turkey, this is all part of a FETÖ-inspired international conspiracy.
The judge has a link to FETÖ, the prosecutor has a clear link to FETÖ, one of the witnesses is a FETÖ member who fled Turkey. This is all linked to when Turkey stopped playing the international role expected of it and started to pursue its own destiny. This hostility will continue.
O dönemde
At first, the government and pro-government media assigned massive importance to Zarrab as a valuable Turkish citizen.
Daha önce piyasada iş yapılan muteber insanlardı.
However, when Zarab started to cooperate with the prosecutor's office, the prosecutor, the judge, and the entire US Justice Department were declared as FETÖ supporters.
Rıza Sarraf, rehin alındığı için itirazcı olduğunu, daha doğrusu iftiracı olduğunu jüri karşısında böyle anlattı.
Of course, this isn't a credible narrative.
Çok inandırıcı bir şey değil tabii bu.
There is a discrepancy between the reporting of the Zarab case by the Turkish and the international media. The international media look forward to seeing information against Erdogan, against his ministers, and against Turkey.
His fight with the military has been a long time coming.
A man who has tightened his grip on power by jailing thousands of political opponents at home.
50,000 people have been arrested. 150,000 people have either lost their jobs or been suspended.
Following the 15th of July, the silence of Western actors seemed to say that they were sad that the coup had been prevented. This made journalists who thought Turkey and the West share common interests reconsider their positions.
Düşündürücü bir faktör oldu.
Erdogan was in France when a French journalist asked him a question about Syria, and President Erdogan was not happy with this question, and he asked the journalist if he was a member of FETÖ.
Sen FETÖ'cüyle konuşuyorsun.
Je parle comme un journaliste français.
All of these international and domestic developments can be explained as part of this international conspiracy against Turkey.
Persecuted by enemies abroad, infiltrated by enemies within, most of the Turkish media have now closed ranks around a state-sanctioned narrative that appears to explain all of this in terms of the failed 2016 coup attempt. Meanwhile, hundreds of journalists have been arrested, their news outlets shuttered or taken over by government supporters. The result is a media landscape where the only story is the July 15 story.
The pro-government media is serving the same political narrative and the same political objectives as Erdogan and the AKP government. Obviously, their political agendas are very much aligned, and because they serve to propagate the message from the party and from the president, we can see several similarities in terms of their narratives.
Türkiye'de uzunca bir zamandır
80 to 90% of the media in Turkey has been under government control for a long time, and they report with one voice, that is, communicating Erdogan's views solely. Within the last year, we are seeing what we call the presidential palace media fighting among themselves to prove who is more pro-Erdogan, who is super ultra pro-Erdogan.
Süper Erdoğancı olarak kendi aralarında kapışmaya başladılar.
The stories that a nation tells become how that nation imagines itself collectively, how it understands its victimhood, its identity, and its destiny. If for Turkey, July 15 was the day everything changed, narratives around the failed coup and FETÖ are a new national creation myth, one that, with so much of the Turkish media behind it, is rapidly becoming a new national reality.